Welcome to Dividing Truth. We are back with yet another episode and another amazing guest whom I'll introduce to you shortly. My name is Lexi Johnson and I am your host. And Dividing Truth is a weekly podcast where we are discussing financial truths that are dedicated to helping women entrepreneurs and women professionals become financially free in uncertain times. So, long story short, we want you to think differently and master your money. That's exactly what we're here to help you do. And so, you are listening on Radio Wave. And so, I want to share with you, you can go to radiowaveforyou.com. In fact, I'm highly encouraging you to go there and to subscribe and to check out some of the other amazing podcasts and shows that occur throughout the week. You can also check us out on Facebook at Radio Wave for You. Again, the Facebook page is Radio Wave for You, and you can connect to the Radio Wave app from that Facebook page, or you can simply go to your Google store, your Google Play store, or your Apple store and download the Radio Wave app so that you can catch Dividing Truth and all of the rest of the great Radio Wave podcasts that are going on daily throughout the day for you. So let me talk to you now about our guest today. Our guest is a really special friend of mine. I'm so excited to have him on. We've known each other for a few years now, and he's a podcast host himself, podcast host of Bourbon Chronicles, and he's going to share more about that a couple of times throughout our time today. But one of the things that I love about my guest is that he pulls no punches in his words, okay? He pulls no punches in his words, and I love it. I love people who just speak like it is, right? Tell it plainly like it is, and they're not afraid to talk about what it is that they believe, why they believe it, and they have this almost, you could take it or leave it. So I love it when people are that are that bold and that transparent. And so I'm happy to have on the show today, Mr. Jared Brown. Jared, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. I was so looking forward to this. So share with the audience a little bit about you.
So I am a retired IT professional, retired due to injury to my eye. Actually went blind for like 6 months, so I had to find a new gig. So I became a photographer, which sounds really weird, but you only need one eye to shoot a camera. So hey, it worked out. I've now transitioned into podcasting, not looking at it as a business model, but it was just something I had all the software, I had all the hardware, just something to do because of COVID. My business has kind of slowed down. So turns out there's a lot of monetizing that can be done in podcasting. So maybe it'll be my new full-time job.
Yes, absolutely. It is, and there's definitely a lot of monetizing that can be done. And so I'm glad you talked about that. We're going to come back to that a little later in the show about, COVID and, what you've been doing with your business, how you've been pivoting, the new podcast and all of that. But, people, those of you who are listening, if this is your first time listening, this show, what I love to do is have guests on. Sometimes I have guests, sometimes I don't. But when I do have guests on, I love for them to share their money journey, if you will, because what I know is that a lot of us, when we grow up, we don't really get a great education about how money works. If you're anything like me, you really get hardly any education at all, right? They're not teaching it in schools. They're not teaching it in any of our, big institutions like church and they're not teaching it in the banks either. You would think they would, but they're not teaching certain things in the banks either because, they got to make money. And if they teach you really how to be financially free on your own, you wouldn't need them, right?
Right.
So, Jared, I want, if you will, just I share with the audience what was, prior to you learning whatever you know about money now, what was your beliefs about money? What was your attitude towards money? How did you learn about money? I'm just going to let you,
Okay.
free flow all of that.
I grew up in, I guess you could call it a blue collar household. My dad worked for Chrysler. My mom worked in the front office of a bakery. Even though she was like doing clerical work or whatever, it was still a blue collar company. Um, so I was taught to always save a little bit of money. And when I say a little bit, I bet it was probably 10, 15% is what they were saving. And that would always get you through the hard times, but they were still depending paycheck to paycheck. So that's how I was raised. My granddad was an entrepreneur, so I talked to him a lot, and he was always like, whenever you can start a business, he would say start a sideline job, which we would call like a side hustle. So even as a kid, I would cut grass, rake leaves, shovel snow, to the point where I remember the pivotal point in my life of figuring out that others, you can make money from others, is I broke my mom's lawnmower. And it was like, it was on its last legs, but it was her lawnmower. So I had to go to one of those used lawnmower shops, buy a lawnmower. And while I was there, it was cheaper for me to buy three lawnmowers than to go to the store and buy a new one. So I bought all three lawnmowers. The guy gave, I think I probably spent $100. And I hired some kids to work for me. And from there, I never really worried about working because I was making 20% of what they made. So if they were work hard, I was automatically getting money. And that's where my, I hate to say it, but love affair for money came from. I'm one of those people who try to, or who used to try to do the least amount of work for the most amount of money. So I never liked working for anybody. I always wanted to have my own company. Um, and even in the IT field, I only worked for somebody because in the early 90s, mid 90s, it was too expensive for health insurance, which I guess is still expensive, um, to be self employed. And I was diagnosed as a diabetic at 18. So that means my premiums skyrocketed. So
Mm-hmm.
I always ran a business that could work after hours, like I did deployments. Sorry if I keep touching my ear; these AirPods don't really fit right.
That's all
Um,
right.
and I would do deployments, which would be more. One deployment would be more than my monthly salary at my job, but they pay for my insurance, so it was a win-win. And I was married at the time, so unfortunately, I believe that saving money didn't matter because I could always go out and get another contract. I could always go out as long as I
Mm-hmm.
had my health. I can make more money. Then
Uh,
probably about 30 years old, my first I was training for a bike race, fell, knocked my retina out, went blind for 6 months, and couldn't make the money I was used to. Ended up filing bankruptcy because I was overextended in credit. Got divorced. A lot of things went haywire because my lack of planning. From there, what I realized was our health is our money. So I had to, since my health was failing, I had to start saving. Turn about 35, I get a death sentence. They don't know, but my body is shutting down, it's failing. So I had or life insurance. So I went out and blew my savings. That's 10 years ago. I'm still here. Turns out I had an
yeah.
aneurysm that they couldn't find. So when they
Okay.
found it, I got the surgery and I had a cuspid valve replaced. Needless to say, I blew through my savings thinking I was going to be dead in 6 months. And I am just actually, that's about the time that I met Choose after my surgery. And you were the reason why I could even go through the financial difficulties that we are having now. Um, so you're kind of like my lifeline, my lifesaver. You know, everybody is thankful for mom and dad. I'm thankful for Lexi because it kind of
Oh,
changed my outlook on money. And not that my parents didn't save or didn't do, they just didn't really. I don't think they prepared for bad times. I don't remember a bad time growing up. So like we
yeah.
weren't rich, but we weren't poor. We never had money problems. We always had food. Always had a roof over our head. I just think they never. I don't know if today, if COVID hit them, if they would have been able to get through it. That's
Yeah.
how that's how little money was talked about in my house. Like there was never concern. Oh,
Yeah.
got enough money. Oh, we'll pay these bills. or I get paid next week, so I'll just put it off to next week. There was never real planning. It's just
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's just crazy to think that. And my parents are older. Like my parents had me at 35, so they had their life planned out, but I'm not sure that they had their old age planned out. If that makes sense.
yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And as you're talking about, your parents, and I'm sitting here thinking about my parents and how much what you're saying is resonating with me, because when my parents, at least as long as while they were married, like there were no, like you said, we weren't rich, we weren't poor.
Right.
My dad was working in the steel mills in northern Indiana, and at that time,
Okay.
like the steel mills were, and they still are. It's a good job,
Right.
and so there wasn't necessarily a need to worry, about
Hmm.
money in the sense. But again, I don't think my parents, also coming from another country, all of that, they have money. You just don't necessarily know what to do with it to
Right.
ensure, you know, future and everything else goes okay, or you don't necessarily know what to teach your children about it. You just know you have it and you should save a little bit.
I think it was a different time as well because they had secured pensions where most
True.
jobs today don't have a secured pension. Like my mom, she's transitioning into a nursing home as we speak, but she had a secured pension, so she didn't have
Yes.
investments. She didn't
Right.
have an IRA. She didn't. It wasn't even anything they thought about. My dad was the same
Right.
way. In fact, he died about 5 years ago. He died right before my surgery, and he actually had the same issue, but his heart was too weak to get fixed.
Okay.
But he had it set up to where my mom gets a portion of his retirement. So it's like it was never a thought process of saving money. I just had to work until retirement. That was their mindset, which I don't think that works for us today.
It doesn't. And you're so right, about them having the secured pensions, because my father just retired in March of this year.
Oh
And,
wow.
he has his pension.
Right.
He has
Right.
his pension. So you're right. They didn't have to really go looking, for an IRA or anything like that. And,
Right.
when they began replacing the pensions with the 401ks, that that disrupted all of that. But I
Hmm.
don't think that, well, I know, because dealing with people all the time, I know that people still looked at those 401ks as some sort of pension. And
Right.
it's like, no, this is not pension, this is like a little supplement, and you need to be doing some things
Exactly.
on your own. And so people didn't
Exactly.
necessarily get that message. And if they
I was one
did,
of those
they
people.
really
I
didn't
was one of those people.
understand. Right, me too. And and if you did understand, okay, oh, if you happen to understand, oh, this is a supplement, I need to do something else, you still didn't really understand, what that something else was, or how to even go about doing it, because that was just something, like investing on your own, that was just something that happened in wealthy families, in rich families.
Exactly.
Oh, those
Exactly.
people do that. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So you had um you had something, I want to say that I have, but I didn't realize that I had. Okay, so you had your grandfather, you said, was an entrepreneur who
Hmm.
taught you, who taught you some things. My mom started a preschool in our basement, in the basement of our home. Um, she started it though just out of a love for children, and out of
Right.
a love for, teaching. She would not, and to this day, would not have considered herself an entrepreneur. She didn't know anything about
That's because
business. She didn't know anything about any of
well,
that.
she
It
did
was
what she
just, this
loved
is what
though.
I love to do. That's it, right? It
Right.
was like, I
Yeah.
just love to
Right.
do this, and
Right.
so she didn't really understand the whole, business side of things, and what to do with any of that money that was coming in as a result of, her endeavor, so it was just, after my parents divorced, it was it was just, it was a way to, it did help,
Mm-hmm.
pay the bills, or, or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be. But again, she never looked at it like, wow, this is something that, I could really take and, really become financially free, upon,
Right.
about this. And I don't know if your grandfather even talked with you about, becoming financially free or anything like that, but I know he talked to you. Yeah,
Right.
at least you're inspired. You became like an entrepreneur young. Like, I knew I wanted to open a business, but I didn't even connect it with my mom and what she was doing, because she never considered it,
Right.
a business. Yeah.
I became an
So,
entrepreneur young because my mom told me no. I'm my only child. And the misnomer is
okay.
that only children get everything they want. I had a bad
Okay.
attitude. I had a horrible attitude. Not like I was disrespectful, but if I didn't want to do it, I didn't do it. So I stayed
Right.
in what they called timeout because my mom was not really a spanker. But she would like 1 year I remember her taking everything out of my room but a blanket. So the
Yeah.
blanket was either to cover me or to lay it on the pillow because that's how bad I was. My grades were horrible. But I wanted to buy my own things when I wanted them, not knowing that my parents. I guess I knew, but I didn't think. I was trying to get them to call their bluff. They still took them away, even though I paid for them, because that's what
Oh
parents are
my.
supposed to do. Yeah, that's what
You're
parents are
right.
supposed to do.
right.
My mom was very frugal. She didn't see, I don't think, what did we have back then? I think it was like the Chuck Taylors were expensive, and my mom wouldn't buy them. Like she bought me like Pro Kids, which Pro Kids are cool now, but not in the '80s. Pro Kids were like buy
Yes.
buddies. So I wanted a good pair of
Yes.
tennis shoes, so I started my own business to buy what I wanted. But what I didn't understand that you should put up 50% of what you make and live off of 25, and then you can blow that 25 for the extra 25 for expenses that come up. I blew everything. Like I literally probably between 13 and 25 had maybe $100 in my bank account. I had multiple car payments, house payment, vacations. So like I was living in my means, but my means was only because I was working 60, 80 hours a week, but I was working 40 of that for myself, 40 of that for an employer. Wasn't sleeping. So, my health conditions, just money was the root, the love of money for me was the root of my downfalls. But it taught me a lesson
Okay.
that I can teach other people. Um, like I teach my kids now, like, whatever you make, put up half. I don't care what you do with the other half. And if you can't
Yeah.
afford to live off of that half, then you need to cut down your level of living. And we fight about this all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, we've got a 14-year-old in the house that we argue. He's like, I just made like $30. Why can't I spend it? Nope. You don't have to put it in the bank, but you got to put it in a savings account or in a savings, like
Right.
he's got a little cookie jar type thing. So, and then like 1 year for Christmas, he was so happy because he could buy everybody's gifts, but I still only let him spend half of that. So that's
Yeah.
just my
Yeah.
kind of take on it. It's not really rocket science, but no, we don't do it. Like in the Black community, unless your parents had a financial planner, I don't think we got the lessons of what money is allows you to do. We just knew that you could buy things, but we didn't know that money will allow you to not have to do other things.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, that's one of the things that you said that I want to reiterate, is that you said it's not rocket scientist and rocket science, and it's not. It's not rocket
Right.
science. And I remember, when I started to learn, some of the concepts of, becoming financially free, um, you know, investing, saving, all of those things. I was just like, is this it? Are you kidding me? Like, is it this simple? And
It is.
it is. It is. It's so simple. And I often say that we just we're not having those conversations in our family, but we're not having them because we don't know them, right? So it's
Right.
not necessarily, it's not like our parents wanted to, do us in, or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. They just don't know what they don't know. And so, but what you find is in families that are wealthy, um, and have generational wealth, that these are conversations that they're having with their children all the time.
Mm-hmm. At the dinner
Meanwhile,
table.
yeah, exactly, like it's all day every day, right? And so, but in our families, or I'll speak, in my experience, and I'm not necessarily just saying my parents, but, even friends or, other
Hmm.
families that I knew of, like to talk about money all the time, that was like, especially for us, in the faith community, that was just like, that's not what you do. Oh my goodness, you're of the
Right.
devil. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Because you're always talking about
Right.
money, and they would misquote, the scripture or whatever, you know,
Hmm.
root of all evil is money. It's like, no, it's the love of it, but
Right.
that's what it was. It's like, no, you don't, we don't talk about that. Money's not important. Um, just being happy and all of that is important, which,
Hmm.
yes, I get it. Yes, happiness is important. Yes, we don't want to put money above God. Yes, we don't, but
Hmm.
we need to be real that money is important. Okay. And it's something that we
Right.
need to be
Well,
talking about all day, every day.
I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. No longer in that faith, but what always I caught odd was they would want you to, when you got of age, to take 2 years to go spread the gospel, and then you would just live off of, basically it was like donations or whatever. And I
Yes.
always found that to be odd because you had to have money to even consider that. But it was never a discussion in
Yes.
the church about money. It was, you were supposed to pay your tithes, you're supposed to give, extra, and but it never was talked about that if you really are going to fulfill God's will, that you had to have money. Because like if you look at Jesus when he spread the gospel and
Yes.
all that stuff, he wasn't broke. He was a carpenter. So,
Right.
you got to think that everybody needs a house built, they need chairs built. So he had money and they walked around with spices, which is the equivalent of gold
Yes.
today. And nobody knows
Yes.
that. So like you can go do the good work when you don't have to worry about rent, you don't have to worry about I mean, he's God's son. So like, he could say, Daddy, send me some money, but I mean, he didn't have to. He was prepared.
Right.
And I don't think
Right.
in the black community we understand just how rich he was, not only in knowledge, but in physical wealth.
Yes. Absolutely. Because in our community, we're always portraying him as poor. He didn't
Right.
have nowhere to lay his head, and it's like, I don't think we're reading the same book, people. Now that
Exactly.
now that
Exactly.
I'm now that I'm older, and it forged out, and making sure I had a relationship with Yahshua myself. Yahshua myself. So I was like, what book are we reading here? Because I'm seeing something totally different. And you're right. We would talk about going on missions, or it not even just going on missions, just living your purpose. When you talked about living your purpose and you talked about doing something that you loved, in the
Hmm.
church, it's like, you do these things for the church because you love it, not because
Hmm.
we're going to pay you or anything like that. And I'm like, the book that I read, like, what you love, what you go out and do, what you passion, your ministry, it sustains you. Like, there's a scripture that
Well,
says, literally
yes,
says
yes.
that it sustains you, right? So what does that mean? know, because I'm not
Whenever I
being
work,
sustained right now.
right, right. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Whenever I worked in the field that I truly enjoyed, I didn't mind the overtime. I didn't mind the paperwork. And I've mostly worked for myself, so the overtime is, I'm going to work 50 hours a week, but I just worked 80. I never minded that. It never got on my nerves because I'm like when I worked in computers, I enjoyed it. I mean, I geeked out. I enjoyed it. My only
Mm,
downfall is I never went to school for it. So
mm.
I would get a job and quit it because I wasn't making the money that the college graduates was making, but I had three
Yeah.
times the responsibility because I had the knowledge. So I did a lot of
Yep.
self training. I did, and this was before certifications were looked upon.
Right. Right. Right.
At
Right.
least it's equal as degrees. So I had all the certifications, but I had no degree to back them up. So I was working average 20,000 less than everybody else. And don't get me wrong, I was making $50,000 at like 22 years old. That, even in today's time, that's good money. But there's a guy
Yeah.
that I'm keeping him from getting fired that's making 70,000. I don't think that's fair. So I walked
Right.
away but it was my pride because I should have just kept
Hmm.
going and let him get fired and took his job.
Yeah.
But that's not a godly way of thinking either. So, but that's what I should have done.
Listen, no. I don't know. It may just be a godly way of thinking, like hanging in there, because what does it say? The first shall be last, and the
Right.
last shall
That's
be
true.
first.
That's true. That's true. I should have got to that
I
scripture.
joke, but I'm like, right. I'm like, I joke, but I'm like also very, very serious.
Right. Right.
you know. Um, so I want to talk about if there was like a specific event or a series of events, and I think that you've kind of mentioned this, but we'll reiterate it. That then where you
Okay.
were like, um, listen, okay, I gotta learn some more about money. I gotta do something differently. But before I ask you that question, I just want to remind the guests, hey, thank you for listening. You are listening to Dividing Truth, and we're here with Jared Brown. You can find us at www.radiowaveforyou.com, www.radiowaveforyou.com. We want you to subscribe to the website, if I can get my words out right. Subscribe to the website, and there you can catch all of our podcasts. Like you're catching this live, but you may you want to go back and look at some old podcasts, and I definitely encourage you to do so. There's a lot of great content there. So go to the website and subscribe. You can also find us on almost any um, podcast platform: Spotify, Google, Anchor, you name it. We're probably on it, right? So just search Radio Wave, and you will find all of the podcasts that we sponsor there. So, Jared, I want to come back and talk with you now about, uh, again, the events or series of events that um, you decide, okay, I got to do something different, with money, or what was it that triggered you to say, I got to learn something more, or whatever.
I would probably say my two health issues. The first one being knocked my retina out. They reattached it, spent gobs of money, and I basically had the eyesight of a Van Gogh painting in my right eye. Um, won't ever be blind, but it's not. I mean, it's pitiful what I see. Sometimes it's interesting, sometimes it's scary, but most of the time it's like, ugh, I spent $20,000 cash for a surgery just to clear up some blood pooling.
Mm,
Probably could have just wore a patch and called it a day.
mm,
Um, but I got a death sentence of that we can't figure out what's wrong with you. Your blood pressure is constantly escalating. We think that this, whatever is causing this, led to your retina detaching. Um, so my doctor and a couple of specialists, my doctor said, I've consulted a couple of specialists. You've gone to a couple of specialists. I think that you may have 6 months to a year, but I'm not sure. There's no definitive.
mm-hmm.
So I go on a long vacation and I blow all my money because I've been saving. I probably blow probably about 75, 80 grand in a year's time. And I had nothing to show for it. It was vacations, hard partying, stupid purchases, I'm talking about no assets, all liabilities that
Yes.
majorly depreciated as soon as I bought them. And then around 40, they find the aneurysm. So this is 4 years later. So I'm already kind of pissed at doctors anyway, because I was supposed to be gone like 3 years earlier. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've transitioned to photography at this time. And I get this major surgery, and a mutual friend of ours, I was after the surgery, I mean, like I wasn't able to work, and I realized that in this business wasn't like the other businesses where I had workers. I was the business. Because in photography
Mm,
you have a certain eye, a certain style of editing. No one really can mimic that. But I was down for maybe 2 years when they said, oh, about 4 months.
mm-hmm.
But I just I ended up going back because I had aneurysm repaired, And it was basically the same thing that John Ritter died from. That where they told me, rushed me in the hospital. It was like, if you
Okay.
sneeze, it's probably gonna detach. It's called a dissection. And it was at a point that they couldn't repair
Okay.
if it came completely apart. So that was scary. I was newlywed. We were probably about 6 months into marriage,
Okay.
and then from there, they found I had a bicuspid valve, so they gave me this mechanical valve, and um, it built up scar tissue. So it's like, do you get this fixed? Do you not get it fixed? So then I had to go back and get a pacemaker. So I'm like 41 years old, body's in great shape, but I got attachments that like a 70-year-old gets. So it
Yeah.
limits everything I can do. And at that point, I realized, oh, I'm fixed. I'm probably gonna live to 90. Oh, I blew all my wad at 35. What am I gonna do? I'm in credit card debt. Um, and then a mutual friend of ours told me to contact you. I contacted you, what, maybe for over a year before I finally came in and sat down. And you looked over my finances. Actually, one of the reasons why I came in because you were so brutally honest to tell me how many mistakes I made, and that I was carrying debt that I knew I couldn't pay. Why was I making these decisions? I mean, you just ran it down. I only sent you paperwork. I didn't even meet you yet. And I was like, oh, yeah, this is who I need. You made a plan out. And I'm going to tell everybody here, I did half, maybe not even half. I got $20,000 of credit card debt off of me within 2 to 3 years. I was able to restructure some loans, and I got the debt off from being able to save money and calling the credit card companies and saying, hey, I've got what I owe, but not the interest. I can pay you out and you can close this account out. So, your credit takes a hit, but
Yep.
I'm happy to say I went from like a 700 to like 400. I didn't even know you could go down like that, but I'm back up to about a 650 right now. And
Yeah.
this is all over like a 2-3 year period. And she's even taught me how to save money. Like I'm saving money monthly. I'm leveraging, as she puts it. I always use that word. I'm leveraging my investments because I used to buy stocks like once or twice a year. I try to buy them at low and then guess. And she was like, "Why are you doing that? You don't pay attention to trading. You're not a day trader." Um, and it was like the most common sense stuff that you gave me that I never thought about. Like I literally was like, "Oh yeah, okay. Well, I'm doing this," and you're like, "You're not making any money." Like I used to put money in a savings account. You're like, "Why? You don't make any interest off of that. Your money's not working for you." I'm like, "But I'm not spending it." And then the realization came when you said, "But you're still not getting anywhere. You're saving money and you're not getting anywhere." So anybody that knows me knows I'm hard headed, I bullheaded. I think I know everything. I think because I read a few books, I got the hang of it, and I missed all that. And I came in and signed up with you the next day. And she went. You weren't even I wasn't even your client. This was just what you were giving me because you're walking in your purpose. And you were just,
Yep.
and then by the time I became your client, I was a much better client because I already knew that you knew what you were talking about. So, and I've had financial planners. I had financial planners to get me to the point where I could blow that money, but I didn't have anybody that made enough sense for me to truly listen to. So, I just want to say thank you to that because if not, my wife probably would be like kicking me in the face right now. Because I mean, I was one of those people that I don't say, like, if I want it, I'm gonna go get it. I'll figure it out. I'll make money. I'll figure it out. And then, like I said, my health deteriorated, and I had to think. I had to come up with a budget for the first. I had never had even owning businesses. I didn't have a budget. I just knew that okay, we need this to make more money, so go buy it. There was never we'll
Yeah.
buy it in quarter 2, we'll buy it in quarter 3. It's like just go buy it. We got credit. Go buy it. We got
Yeah.
90 days to figure out how we gonna pay for it. That's not smart. I mean, thankfully,
Yeah.
I made money and I was able to pay the people that work for me, but that's not smart. That's not how you do business. And you kind of showed me that money is not about having money; it's how much you can keep and how much you can redistribute to allow you to live. That's as simple as it is. How much can you keep and how
Yeah.
much can you redistribute to allow you to live?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. Listen, audience, listen. I don't, if I have my clients on here, you would never know unless they themselves said that they were a client. So no, I appreciate you saying that. And Jared was really fun. He was really fun to work with, right? Because he's one of those people, like, you can just say you don't have to
Right,
sugarcoat, right? Like, you don't have
right,
to make things sound pretty or worry about people's feelings getting hurt and all that kind of stuff. And I love it when I have clients like that, because I can just say, hey, this is what it is. This is what needs
right,
to happen if you want this to happen. Okay, like, and
right,
that's that. you know
right.
so I appreciate that. I appreciate that about you, and I appreciate the fact that that you took action, on some things, even if it was half of it or a little less than half or whatever. I appreciate you taking action on that. No, because so many people, and now, audience, I'm speaking to you. A lot of people, you a lot of you will get the information, but you will not take any action. And I know that there
Hmm.
are a lot of reasons behind that. There's some fear of the unknown. This is different. Never done this before. This is, foreign. Um, I'm used to what I'm doing. I know what that
Hmm.
brings, even if it's terrible for me. I know what that brings. There's
Right.
familiarity there. What are other people going to begin to think about me? Things like that, and I know and understand that, because those were some things that I had to battle myself. And as far as getting rid of debt, and Jared and I have had these conversations before. Like, I'm personally, in my own personal finances, and with some clients, depending upon their personality and things like that, like, I'm pretty radical. So, like, I'm not
Most
attached to
definitely.
houses. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Right.
not attached to houses and things like that. It's like, okay, I need to get out of debt. Okay, sell the house. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna sell the
Exactly.
house and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? Take the money, do what I need to do, you know, to help myself get out of debt. When I realized, everybody's not there. You know what I'm saying? We've been conditioned. This is another
Hmm.
thing, that we've been conditioned to be attached to things
Yes.
um,
Yes.
that really don't have any meaning. They have meaning because we have given it
Right.
meaning. But I've just learned that, listen, if I can't monetize it, if it's not, helping me to make
Exactly.
money or work money, then I don't need to have it. You know what I'm saying?
And another point is, it doesn't happen overnight. It took you years to get to the screwed up place that all of us were at some point in our lives. And we expect
Yes.
some miracle to happen in 60 days, everything's going to be fine. Now, you done spent 25, 30 years of screwing up your finances. You got at least give it 5 to 10, at least,
Yes. Yes.
unless you hit the lottery. But you probably should stop
Right.
paying the lottery to begin with. So the lottery ain't even one of the things.
Right.
And I beat myself up because I had never really operated in debt or conceived debt. It was always debt, but I was always, because I was healthy enough to go chase the bag and then pay
Mm-hmm.
all the money I just made to pay off the debt, to go back and live another 90 days in debt until I got the next contract, until I got the next job. And like, once again, if it wasn't for you, COVID would have killed me, because I
Yeah.
put money up. Um, and I haven't had a wedding since last November. So my business model has completely changed from 2 to 3 weddings a month to, I haven't worked in, what is that, 7, 8 months, and I'm still okay. I'm not. How do I say? I'm not without worry, but I ain't stressing over it. And so
Right.
to get rid of some of the uneasiness, I started a podcast, and it's Bourbon Chronicles. It's on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts. I think it's on the Google as well, but my RSS feeds got messed up last night. Not due to me, due to something they did, some updates. But I didn't realize that there are people out here. I didn't get into this to make money, but I didn't realize there are people making 6-figure, 7-figure incomes off of podcasts, and they're talking about just stuff that me and my friends talk about. But I guess people don't
Yeah.
talk about that stuff. You know what I mean? Like just because you have a, we'll say, a progressive group of friends, and not everybody has that. And I just thought that was the norm. I thought you had friends you
Yes.
can go, hey man, I just messed up some money, or hey, I'm thinking about this investment, can I pass this by you, or, and everybody doesn't have that. So
Yes.
I don't know. It's wild to me what can be monetized. Now I haven't figured it out. I'm only five shows in, but I'm enjoying it because it's just the outlet, and I'm helping a couple of people. So my goal was just to use the equipment that was sitting around because COVID-19 hit, and now I may have a secondary stream income. Which, when all this clears up, now I got two incomes, and neither one of them takes a lot of time out of my day, so I still can live how I want to live.
Listen, they have, it's been said over and over again that anytime there's something major like this, COVID,
Mm-hmm.
the housing crash, the depression, like they have said that these are the best times,
Mm-hmm.
you have a business idea or whatever, these are the best times, to start a business.
Yep.
And I also want to, say, because I don't want to make it sound like it's just that easy. Oh, we are having bad times to start a business, and I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rich. No, you got to be, intentional.
Right.
And a lot of these businesses oftentimes are created because um, out of a need that
Mm-hmm.
uh, a problem or something that arose as a result of whatever that
Right.
period of time people were
Right.
going through. So whether it was the depression, whether it was the housing crash, whatever it was. And
Right.
so podcasting, I mean, because people are home, right?
Mm-hmm.
People have time. They, want good things to listen to. They're in a space and a mind where a lot of people are in a space and mind where they are wanting to learn about various different things,
Right.
whatever that may
Right.
be, right? It could be about money. It could be about, anything else. So it's an opportune time. It's an opportune time. And um, I don't think that podcasting or anything like this is just gonna go away, all of a
No,
sudden
it's
because go ahead.
no. I say as long as we have negative media, podcasting will be needed because people want,
Yes.
they want an outlet to what you, the doom and gloom that you see on TV every day, every night, every hour. Like I think the worst thing ever happened was all news stations.
Yes.
They put America into a depression. Like we do stupid stuff because of what somebody else is overjudging, misjudging, or maybe even lying about. So you go to your
Yeah.
podcast, you go to your different media or non-traditional media outlets to learn something
Yeah.
new, to hear some positivity, to just see somebody that looks like you doing something. And so I suggest everybody figure out what they can do and just do it. You don't have to make money off of it the first year. If it alleviates some stress, if it brings you some joy, if it makes you happy, do it. Just do it. Just figure out. You'll always figure. There's always a way to monetize. The money will come if you have good intent, good content. The money will come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And so I just want to remind the audience, you're listening to Dividing Truth. We have our guest here today, Mr. Jared Brown, and he's been dropping some wisdom on you all, some financial truths, for people because, and this is what we need because a lot of times people, again, we don't hear like the real stories, the real,
Right.
truth behind why people have the money that they have now, or they're doing better, financially or whatever. What was it? What drove them to that? What did they
Right.
believe before? People need to know that, you're not alone out there. If you're going through some financial
Right.
challenges, you're not alone, right? So, and I also want you all to know that not only can you listen to the podcast you on the website at www.radiowaveforyou.com, but you can listen to it on any just about any podcast platform that you can think of. And I also have a Facebook group specific to this podcast. And what do you know? It's just called Dividing Truth with Lexi on the Facebook. That's the Facebook group. I will put up the website for that, but you can simply just go to Facebook and look for Dividing Truth with Lexi and join the group. Because guess what? The conversation can continue in there, right? Like this podcast only lasts, a good 50 minutes or so, but the conversation can continue in there. And every guest that I have on the podcast is also part of that group, right? And so you can ask them questions, they can answer your questions, but we just, in general, have good conversations about, money and becoming financially free and things of that nature. So I wanted to make sure that you are aware of that, and wanted to make sure, that you had the information so you can make sure that you become part of that group. Okay, along with subscribing to the podcast. Okay, so make sure that you guys do that. So, Jared, you were talking about, with COVID, like having to pivot, and the photography business slowed down because, listen, the event planning industry was one of the industries that got hit very, very hard,
Right.
because events are all about people gathering, right? And we couldn't gather. And so, so you have made, these great points about, okay, you had to figure something else out, you have some extra time, or like you're saying, or you advise the audience, like, listen, if there's something that you love to do during this time, then just go do it and not worry so much about monetizing initially, but just go do it. And so when you said that, like, my heart was like, yes, because, I'm the person too, seriously, I'm the person that's like, some people will come to me all the time. Well, I've had this idea. I wanted to do this or that. Well, what's stopping you? Well, I don't know this. I don't know that. I'm like, but that's what you want to do, right? Yeah.
My biggest.
Okay, well, just start doing it. Like,
right. I mean, it's like, you don't know if it's going to fail until you try. And then failures to me are not failures. They're lessons. Okay, I know that doing A doesn't work. So let me try B. Let me tweak it a little bit. Let me tweak it a little bit. Let me tweak it a little bit. And every time you tweak it, you get a little more successful. And while you're getting successful, I guarantee you're making money. Now, you may not be making enough to quit your job. You may not be making enough to go on that fabulous trip to Paris for 4 weeks or whatever, but I bet you're making enough to pay your light bill. I bet you're making enough to pay your water bill. So if you can alleviate some of those bills and it becomes a constant stream, now it's an asset. Now what you're doing is not only what you love, you're more than likely helping somebody else. You're more than likely spreading a good, positive message. So that means that the universe has got to put that positivity back in you. So at some point, there is a monetary win that's going to be major. Now, that's where you have to find someone to tell you what to do with that money. Because if my old me, that means I'm taking the boys out, we're going drinking, we're partying, I'm paying for the vacation. I don't do that no more. We all over 40. Y'all got to figure out your own vacations. But I mean, like, I'm gonna tell you how petty I am. I will not go on vacation if my wife don't have half. She may not have to spend it, but I need to know that you got it. So that.
But I need to know that you have it.
Yeah. So,
right.
Because if you saved enough money for us to go on a vacation, that means that you really, really wanted to go on that vacation. That means that you sacrificed. So I need to make sure you go on that vacation. But I had the type of wife that may only want to go on a vacation like every 3 years. She is so content with her life and enjoy. She's a homebody. So like, I'm like, how did I marry you? How did that happen? But we're saving money. So when the kid gets out, we'll be able to do what we really want.
Yeah. I love your wife too, by the way. She's amazing. She is absolutely
she's
amazing.
Gotta be special to deal with me.
Absolutely. I was like, anybody that can deal with Jared. God bless her.
I get that.
You know what I'm saying?
I get that a lot.
No, I truly love her though. She's beautiful inside and out. You said even with her, like that whole notion of, okay, or whether it's her or somebody else, okay, have half of the money, for the vacation. You got to have some skin in the game, and things like that. And
Right.
I think it's just little things like that that help us to really, do well with money, understand how
Right.
money works. Like I have this thing, like if I'm going to go out and buy a smoothie, okay, I'm going to
Hmm.
go out and get a smoothie, which could cost, depending on where you go, and I like the best. So it could cost me about $10, right? 8 to 10
Right.
bucks for a smoothie. Well, my thing is I can get it as long as I put up another 8 to 10 bucks.
Exactly. Exactly.
You know what I'm
That's
saying? Like
actually
even in things
that's
like
actually
that.
how I stopped smoking. Is that I was like,
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna buy these cigars. Every box of cigars, I gotta have at least the money to buy 2 boxes. And I realized how much money I was forcing myself to save. I was like, it'd be
My
easier to
goodness.
stop smoking. It'd be easier to stop smoking. But at least your smoothie is
My
something
goodness.
healthy and not going to kill you.
Right. Right. But I do, with things, with any of those things. So, audience, again, I hope you guys are listening to, the nuggets that he's dropping, and the little things, the mindset. These are, the things, that the shift that you make in your mindset,
Right.
because it's truly important. I always say that financial freedom, it begins first in the mind. And then when you make that shift in your mind, then you'll see the shift in your
Hmm.
behavior. But it
And
first
it's
has to
uncomfortable.
happen here.
And it's
Yes.
very uncomfortable. That mindset shift is hard, but the behavior is 10 times harder. And you'll prove because you can change your behavior, which is like ingrained from like probably from your childhood on, you should
Yeah.
see that you can anything is possible because you changed your whole ideology for the better. So whatever your heart desires to, like, if you want to start a business, you want to just go out and do something in your community, just do it. Because if
Yeah.
it's in your soul, you got to get it out. You got to get it out.
Yeah.
At least that's how I live. You
Yeah.
got to get it out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then going back to what you said earlier, like, the money will follow it. And so what happens is, you go out and you do something, and then you see, okay, you can make $5 from it. You're like,
Hmm.
wow, I didn't really even think people would pay me, to do
Exactly.
this or that or whatever, right? So you make $5 from it or whatever. And then, you see, like you said, oh, I can pay a bill, right? And so
Right.
now you're like, if I can pay a bill, well, then what else can I do, right? And
Exactly.
so it goes from there, right? And that is the feeling that, encourages you, okay, I got to go out and learn more about this. Oh, I got to go
Hmm.
out and be more intentional. Oh, I got to go out. And that's why, I'm of the notion of just start, right? Just take that first step. Just put that first foot in front of the other, because once you have that taste of, you know, you're going to want to do more. So, like when Jared was, buying the cigars and saying, I got to have another,
Right. Right.
another amount, 2 times the amount or whatever. But him looking at that and saying, oh my goodness, like I can really put some money
Hmm.
away. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so other things become less important. The cigars become a little less important. You may not eliminate
Hmm.
it all away, but they become a little less important. Your priorities begin to change. You begin to see straight, if you will,
Right.
as it
Exactly.
relates to
Exactly.
money, right? So
Most
this has been,
definitely.
I mean, we've had an amazing conversation. I can't believe our time has gone so fast already.
Right.
But
Right.
Jared, I don't want to leave without the people hearing again, whatever you want to share with them in terms of your photography, in terms of the podcast, how people can reach out to you, all of that. So go ahead and share that with our audience.
My website, jaredbrown.com. The Bourbon Chronicles is so new, and I did think I would have the response that I'm having. That I didn't really prepare for. Like, I bought the domain, but I didn't do the website. So you can reach me at jaredbrown.com. There's forms on there. There's emails and everything for whatever you need for photography purposes, or if you want to be a guest on the podcast. Like I said, this was something I said, you know what? I've got the equipment. I'm going to do it. And then it just took off. Like, I have people messaging me daily, like, oh, I want to get on your show. I want to da 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 da. And then there's the aspect of once again, Lexi came to my saving grace of I was like, how do I weed these people out to make sure that I want my people to see what they're about? And she gave me a whole like little a form for them to fill out. So I was like, I'm just telling you, make sure that you follow whatever she's putting out because it's always 100% golden nuggets of knowledge.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Tell the people though, what's the premise of your podcast? How'd you come up with the name? Like, yes, share that.
I'm a bourbon drinker. I don't drink anything but bourbon. I don't. Every once in a while, I'll take a nice single malt scotch, but I'm a bourbon drinker, and bourbon is a drink that you're not supposed to put the bottle up. When the bourbon bottle comes out, you're supposed to drink amongst friends until it's gone. So that's what it is. It's kind of like a little set down. I'll have some guests, or I may just be talking about something that happens in the world and my point of view. And and I will tell everybody it's a black point of view because I happen to be a black guy, but it's relatable to all races. And it's up for discussion. It's not one of those set in stones. If you disagree with me, send me an email. Let me know. We can probably discuss it on air because nothing is really offensive. It's just some things that make you go, oh, I never looked at it like that. And Lexi was my second guest. She was supposed to be my first, but she's busy. So that's just, the way it goes. We have guests from entrepreneurs to chefs to daycare owners, just saying how they go through their daily grind and how they got to where they are. It's just like life, and it's just a discussion, just like a couple people sitting back, having a glass of bourbon. But the problem is that most of the people I interview don't drink, so I haven't figured out that part. Maybe entrepreneurs don't drink. Maybe I'm the only one. I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is hilarious. That's hilarious. Some of us might drink, just not, maybe not at the time during the time we're recording the podcast, right? Because we're in the thick of working or whatever. But
well,
yeah,
you're very busy. So like whenever I get with you, it has to be in your work schedule. So like I don't day drink. I think our podcast I had to day drink, and one of my friends, my other friend, I had to day drink. I was like, I see why people don't day drink. I'm useless. I'm useless after this. I'm gonna go to
sleep. Right. Yeah, so it was amazing. Listen, guys, I had an amazing time on Jared's show. So make sure that you go to his website, jaredbrown.com, and make sure that you're following him. I know he's on social media. You want to tell people like maybe what your social media handles are?
On Facebook, it is Bourbon Chronicles. And then it will be the same on Twitter and what is it called? Instagram. I'm having an issue at this moment. Somebody has that name, and I think I'm going to buy it from him. But he's kind of giving me a ungodly price, so we're just leaning on him a little bit and see if he'll come down.
Yes, I understand. I understand. Well, again, thank you, Jared. This has been amazing. I want to thank the audience. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure that you share with everyone, how much you enjoyed this episode or any episode of Dividing Truth. We are, again, just a weekly podcast. We're coming to you. We want to share with you financial truths, because we're dedicated to making sure that you are financially free in these uncertain times. We want you to think differently. We want you to master your money. So once again, thank you. I've been your host, Lexi Johnson, with our guest, Jared Brown. You guys have an amazing day. Peace.
Audio Jungle.